Hello, Sunil.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir. We can start the session at 2:30 p.m. sharp.
Okay, okay, madam.
Yes.
Hello. Hello. Very good afternoon to everybody. I welcome all the participants to the next session, that is on sensor technology. And today with us we have three of our eminent speakers who will be taking an overview on the developmental activities which are carried out. And with us we have our first speaker, Mr. Shanmugaraj. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Shanmugaraj. Mr. Shanmugaraj is currently heading the Center for Sensors, Vision Technology and Control Department. He has over more than 2.5 decades of experience, and his areas of specializations are design and development of embedded controllers, programmable logical controllers, computerized numerical controllers, etc. He is trained in design and development of computerized numerical controller as fellow of UNDP at Bridgeport Machines Incorporation, USA, for a period of over 6 months, and undergone training at Oklahoma State University, USA, for a period of 2 months in the field of development of thermal error compensation module and machine tool applications. So the controller developed by him, that is the programmable logic controller and the indigenously developed Loom controllers, thermal error compensation controllers are noteworthy. Also, he serves as a faculty member for many of the control related courses. He has published over more than 10 papers in national and international conferences and trained thousands on controllers. He is currently working on MEMS sensor development. So with this introduction, I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Shanmugaraj. Sir, over to you, sir. Sir, you can go to the presentation. Yes, sir, it is visible. Hello, sir. Sir, you are not audible, sir. Hello, sir. Sir, you are not audible, sir. Sorry for the interruption. I think there is some technical glitches. We'll get back to you, right?
Hello, Pradyumna.
Tell me, Sunil. Tell me, Sunil.
Pradyumna, you can start maybe next topic.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
Now are you able to hear, Pradyumna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now you are audible, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. You please share your screen, sir.
Is it visible?
No, sir. No, sir.
One second.
Yeah.
It is visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are
Audible?
visible and you are visible and audible, sir. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Please continue, sir.
Sorry for the inconvenience caused. And my name is Shanmugh Raj, working for the Center for Sensors, Vision Technology and Controls. And as I mentioned sometime before, this particular center has three groups. One is the sensors group, vision, and third one is the controls group. And since there are two more speakers which are going to cover about the sensors and then the the vision group, about the vision, the development which are taking place in the vision group. So I would briefly introduce, and then probably a little more talk about the the control aspect of it. And if you have any doubts, probably you can get it clarified, maybe right now or at a later point of time. So the sensors group is actually is involved in design and development of various kind of sensors. And as of now, we have completed two variants of temperature sensor. And the temperature, it is capable of measuring the temperature variation starting from minus 20 degrees Celsius to plus 180 degrees Celsius. And it is under field trial in one of the strategic sectors. And once that field trial is over, we will release it in the market for usage. And we also, based on the experience what we had with the temperature sensor development, we are also building a RTD sensor array for one of the leading multinational company in Bangalore, and that is nearing completion. And it's one of the best development what is taking place within our center. And other than that, we are also in the process of developing a flow sensor, and which is also nearing completion. And this flow sensor is, as of now, what is being developed is meant for biomedical applications, and probably with a little bit of redesign or maybe a slight change in the configuration and all that, we'll be able to make use of the flow sensor for even industrial applications as well. And other than that, the two other sensors what is being developed is, one is the pressure sensor, which is ongoing, and also the accelerometer, which is one of the most complex kind of sensors, which is also being under development as of now in the under our section. And the audience will be able to hear more about these developments and also the facility whatever we have. Of course, we have a sensors facility with over 100 crores. And with that facility, it is possible for us to make some of these complex sensors and so on. And you will be able to hear more about that in the next session. So let me move on to the next section as a part of our department or the center. And this is basically a vision technology group involved in development of various developments for different applications. And basically what they do is they do take care of 2D and 3D inspection systems. And most of it, because it's a vision based, they're all non-contact based. And so any kind of components or maybe anything could be measured with the help of this vision technology. And one of the important thing is the thread measurement system, wherein it is meant for medical applications. I think this also you will be hearing it in the next session. And we are also in the process of developing a handheld scanner, a DST sponsored project ongoing. And with this, because it's a handheld scanner, it is possible for us to take this to any place, and then probably it is possible for us to make any complex measurements that is possible. And we have also carried out one of the inspection system for one of the textile machine component, and it's already installed, successfully working. And so this group is also involved in the design and development of vision-based systems for many other applications. Okay, so we'll also be hearing about this in detail, maybe in the next session. So what I would like to do is that I would try to concentrate more on the control part of it, because this is the only one session wherein you'll be able to hear about all that. So this group, though it is a very small group, so what we basically do is, and we have built, for example, the programmable logic controllers, which are very popular in the industrial automation applications. And then we have actually designed and developed two kinds of PLCs. One is the standalone PLC, that means the PLC works on its own. And this was done sometime before for a textile machine. And this PLC is capable of controlling the entire textile machine for one of the applications. Of course, textile machine, there is a variety of machines which are available as part of textile machinery, this one. But this particular PLC is capable of controlling one variant of the textile machine. The another one is the integrated PLC. That means this PLC works with some other controllers as well. And this is meant for a computerized numerical control applications. And most of the machine tools, generally they work with a computerized numerical controller. And this PLC plays a very major role as a part of the computerized numerical control, one of the most complex PLCs, whatever you have developed. And if you look at the development part of it, it is indigenously developed. Everything is developed in-house, both the hardware as well as software. And even though this also was developed sometime before, and at that point of time itself, this PLC was one of the most complex PLCs developed until now. That means even though this was developed sometime before, even today, the PLC can compete with any of the other PLCs which are available in the market or which are being used for different applications. So this is one of the major development what took place within our group. And this, if you look at the programmable logic controllers, and they are almost everywhere, starting from, for example, maybe a washing machine or like a traffic signal controller or any machine tool, any automation, anything, any factory automation you think of, probably you find a PLC there. So we have contributed much for the machine tools as well as for the textile machine application. So this is one of the important development what was carried out within our center. And so the another important controller, which is going to revolutionize the way in which the machine tools are, giving the components. That means the precision, whatever you get from the components, it is going to really revolutionize. In the sense that this controller could be considered as an edge controller. So what it does is this controller will be sitting very close to the machine tool, and it captures some of the data which is coming from some of the sensors, basically the temperature sensors from the machine tools, and the temperature variations, whatever is happening, maybe starting from the early morning until the evening, and the machine tool components are more vulnerable to the change in temperature. And it also depends on the environmental conditions in and around the machine. And so the component, at the end of the day, the component, whatever we are going to get from a machine out of the machine, there could be a lot of variations. So what this controller does is, basically, it is trying to understand the change in the temperature profile, and then trying to compensate some of the parameters within the controller in such a way that the component, whatever we are going to get, or manufactured from the machine, will be very close to the actual value. Okay, and I already mentioned that this is going to revolutionize. That means even a normal machine, whatever we look at in a typical shop floor environment, probably this may convert it into a precision machine. So and the thing is that this is highly indigenously developed as a standalone. That means even though there is a CNC controller associated with every machine tool, this controller will be sitting next to the CNC controller, and it computes the thermal variations and then gives the compensation values to the CNC controller itself, so that the CNC is capable of compensating for the thermal variations, whatever is happening in the machine tool. Okay, and this technology has been already transferred to one of the industry for actually a precision machine. So what happens is, a normal precision machine becomes a ultra precision machine after implementing this particular. That's how I said that it is going to revolutionize. And the algorithm whatever is developed for computing the thermal deviations is built using artificial intelligence. I think most of you probably would have heard about machine learning, deep learning, and so on as a part of artificial intelligence. So some portion of the algorithm is also built with artificial intelligence. And So what happens is the final outcome of this particular controller, it is capable of compensating more than 80% of the errors which are thermally induced due to the thermal variations, whatever you find in the machine. For example, when I say more than 80%, suppose if I get an error of 10 micrometers from any of the machine tools, so this will compensate as high as more than 8 micrometers. So the error from 10 micrometers, it is going to be reduced to 2 micrometers. So thereby it falls within the category of the precision machine. And so the technology has been already transferred to one of the industry, and we are also working on working with one of the other industries so that the technology will be transferred to them shortly as well. And more than that, what we are trying to do is this technology we are trying to transfer it to most of the machine tool industries, so that a normal machine tool probably will become like a precision machine tool. This is one of the very, very important development what took place within our group. And the future is going to be most of the machines, like the moment this particular the hardware as well as software is part of the CNC as the machine, and a machine becomes a precision machine, and that's how it is going to revolutionize the machine tool industry. So this, as I said, is one of the very, very important development what took place in the within our group. Then there is another what you call the embedded control. Generally, what we call it as high-speed Rapier shuttle. I think CMT has already developed one of the high-speed Rapier loom, and so what happens is, if you look at the Rapier high-speed shuttle-less Rapier loom, which are imported from the other countries, they have a customized controller, built for a specific application. And the Rapier shuttle-less loom, as it is very, very complex machine with built-in a lot of features, so as to make, for example, the number of picks per minute, what we generally call it as, it goes as high as 450 to 500 and so on. And then the controller is highly customized, and then so it is not really possible for us to get into such kind of development. So, but recently what we have done is, by understanding some of the machine, whatever we have developed earlier, the controller development is taking place within our group, and it's indigenously developed. It's a reconfigurable modular hardware architecture. It means that even though the controller is built for the loom applications, tomorrow the same hardware I can reconfigure it and call that as a PLC, as I said, the programmable logic controller, or probably you can use it as a CNC, or this the controller could be reconfigured for any other control application. That is one of the biggest advantage what we have. But as of now, it is developed for controlling the high-speed Rapier shuttle-less loom with the picks per minute of 550. That means, but the controller is capable of controlling as high as 700 picks per minute, so that when we think of 550 picks per minute control, it's not going to be a big deal. And so it is a reconfigurable. That is one of the important the way in which the controller is designed. And if you look at any of the loom machine, what is very, very important is that how the tension of the yarn is adjusted. That is a warp, what we call it as, within the loom machine. So we have come out with a very highly innovative tension control algorithm. This will make this particular control either equal to or better than any of the other controllers which are available in the market, which is meant for controlling high-speed Rapier shuttle-less loom. So we are very confident, based on the way in which the algorithm is designed, this will make one of the this will make the loom machine with a very high, the quality of the fabric what we are going to get will be much better than, or maybe equal to or much better than the imported machines whatever you are going to get. And the foremost important thing is the earlier machine whatever we have developed, and actually the cost of the controller is amounting to, for example, 17 lakhs. If you roughly estimate 17 lakhs, but we have taken care some of the things in such a way there's going to be a huge cost reduction. Even though I talked about 90%, in fact it is much more than that. So tomorrow, when we have the controller development is almost nearing the final stages, both hardware as well as the software. So what happens is, when the controller is there is a machine which is being newly built within CMTA for the same purpose with the 550 pix per minute. And so this controller is going to be interfaced to that particular machine. So what happens is the 17 lakhs of the hardware cost, after this controller put into the machine, the cost of the controller is going to be reduced to as low as 60,000 rupees. So this is a very highly, this is the huge cost reduction. So straight away, we are able to remove almost 16.5 lakhs from the cost of the machine. So that is the way the controller is designed. As I said, it is highly modular. The way in which the controller works is that, you can, if at all any problem is there with the controller, it could be easily replaced because it's a very modular in fashion, very high innovative algorithm, and the cost is going to be very, very less. As I said, it is when it is compared to the imported controllers. In fact, it's more than 95% what I can say. And the software could be, as I mentioned, the software could be changed and made to work as some of the other controllers like PLC, CNC, or any other control application what you are thinking of. So this is yet another the very, very, very highly complex controller what is being developed within our group. And so based on the advantage, based on the experience whatever we have with the PLC, the what do you call the loom controller, and also the thermal error compensation and controller and so on, henceforth we are in a better position to take any challenge. In fact, we made some of the controllers for the test tricks of the aerospace components as well. That is because that we did it for another department. Maybe it will figure in that particular center. So I have not covered this here. So our controller group within this SVTC, Sensors, Vision Technology and Control, the small group which is involved in designing and development of the controllers is capable of designing any controller for any of the applications. Okay. So because we are also part of the MEMS sensors group, so this controller group is also involved in the design and development of some of the complex signal conditioning module for the MEMS, that is micro electromechanical systems applications. Okay, there are different transaction principles which are involved in the signal conditioning modules of which are designed for various sensors. So something like change in voltage, current, resistance, capacitance, and so on. So this particular group is also involved in design and development of this particular signal conditioning module, so that the sensors group, whatever is developed in sensors, tomorrow this could also be interfaced with that. So with this, I just conclude the important activities what is happening within our center. Sensors, the vision. In fact, you are going to hear much more than that in the coming sessions. And the controllers, I think probably would have come to know what exactly we are capable of doing, what has been done, and what the changes it is going to make. And most of it, whatever we are doing is import substitution. For example, the thermal error compensation is an import substitution, what we think of. The loom controller development, whatever has been carried out, is also an import substitution. And these two are going to really revolutionize both the loom as well as the machine tool industry. Thank you for your patience here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah. Sir, let us see if there are any questions from the participants. I don't see any questions in the question and answer dialog box, but I request all the participants to make a note of the email ID of Mr. Shanmugaraj, which I have posted on the chat box, so that you can write your queries to Mr. Shanmugaraj in the future time. So with this, we will move on to our next topic, that is MEMS and its application by Kusma Madam. So let me take this opportunity to introduce the next speaker. Kusma N is the group head for MEMS and sensors. She is a scientist E at Central Manufacturing Technology Institute, Bengaluru. She is a bachelor in engineering, electronics and communications from NIE Mysore University, and pursuing her post-graduations in MTech Microelectronics from BITS Pilani, Rajasthan. She has over 27 years of experience in the field of MEMS and sensors, CNC machines, control systems. Her area of interest is design and development of MEMS sensors and signal conditioning circuits for various applications, design and development of electrical control systems for special purpose machines. She has published over 10 publications in national and international journals and conferences and guided many MTechs for their project dissertations and BTech students for their degree projects and internship. With this introduction, I would like ask Kusma Madam to take over the presentation.
Thank you, Pradyumna, for your brief introduction about me. And I'll be sharing my presentation file now.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Now?
Yes, madam. Yeah, you can continue, madam.
Yeah. Good afternoon, one and all. I'm going to present on MEMS and its application today. So this is the outline of my project presentation is introduction to MEMS and components of MEMS, MEMS fabrication processes, MEMS characterization processes, packaging process, and its application. So coming on to the introduction to MEMS, we have to see what is the expansion of MEMS is micro electromechanical systems. The acronym of that is micro electromechanical system. It is nothing but the integration of mechanical element, sensors and actuators and electronics on a single silicon substrate. And you can see some of the structures of MEMS structures over here. And the synonym for in Japan, they call it as micro machines, and in Europe, they call it as microsystem technology. And coming on to this, the area, the scale of MEMS, it will lie in this range from 1 mm to 100 nanometer. So you can see a lot of dust particles here, and it is a similar kind of structures, small particles you can see in this range from starting from 0.5 micron to 100 micrometer. So this is the range of the MEMS device, MEMS structures. So components, coming on to the components, in MEMS, we have microsensors, micro actuators, microstructures, microelectronics, all put together or all are interrelated to form MEMS. So you can see here, and some of the devices called MEMS sensors, which can sense the data in different domains, physical domain, different domains, and after that, after acquiring the data, it can analyze and then it can communicate, and then it will take any action on that, and then the actuator will actuate. So this is the main component of MEMS. And why do we need this MEMS? There are a lot of advantages and challenges, and also some of the disadvantages I will be highlighting on. So advantages, it is because it is in a micro scale, it is very small in size, and the cost, because we do on a single silicon wafer multiple number of devices on a in a form of a die, many number of dies, thousands of dies. So it is cost will be low, and sensing also will be very accurate, and because it is so small, and the thermal expansion also will be very less. It occupies very less space, and material requirement is also very low, and the power consumption, it will be in some microwatts and all, and heating power also will be very less. And fastest, it is fastest process in batches. We can because multiple things can be done, multiple devices can be developed on a single wafer in a single batch, so it is very fast. Operation will be very fast, and we also will get very accurate and reliable devices by using this MEMS technology. And mass is also very low. Sensitivity also will be very increased. It will be increased by going for this technology. But the challenges, or what we see, is cost is very high. Why I say cost is very high? Earlier I told cost is very low, but cost is very high because the process involved in that requires a lot of very high-end equipments. In crores of rupees worth of equipments are required. We have to go to, even though we do some designing in using some design tools, we have to give it to the foundry, and then there the cost will be very high. And also it requires a design modeling tools, agreed design modeling tool, which will suit to the best foundry. So we have to develop a design sensor to suit the foundry requirement also. So some of the disadvantage is imperfect fabrication techniques. At one shot, you will not be able to do the fabrication process. You have to do multiple number of times to get a final result, final accurate result. And it is difficult to design in micro scale because the scale is in micron, 10 to the power of -6. It is very difficult to design. And also, we should also have a prior knowledge on to integrate the MEMS devices with even with the external devices, the signal conditioners also. And the procedure is very complex. Coming on to the micro manufacturing technology, how we are going to develop any MEMS devices or so, it involves a major two technologies, that is bulk micromachining and surface micromachining. Bulk micromachining is nothing but on a single silicon bulk, we can develop any devices by using this. You can etch away in bulk. You can etch away in bulk, and even you can see some of the structures here. So within the single silicon substrate, you can do the bulk structures. So there are two concepts here, isotropic and anisotropic. So there you can do the bulk micromachining. Coming on to surface micromachining. So we do here on the surface level itself. So you will have a single silicon substrate and you can develop any cantilever beam wherein you will release the structure by using this releasing process. So this is a micromachining lithography process wherein you have released the cantilever beam. So the structure will be on the top of it, the surface level. So to do all these things, we have to develop any device or to fabricate any devices, MEMS devices, we need a clean room. So clean room will have, actually the standards are there for clean room standard. Federal standard 209E is this federal standard, and that was done, it was used till 2001. After that, it was continued with ISO standard. So you can see ISO standard. So starting from here, 1, 10, 100, this stands for actually particles, number of particles, and here what is the size of the particles in terms of particles per cubic feet. So you can see for 0.5 micron, you can see here, this is ISO standard 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and corresponds to 1, 10, 100, 1000, 10,000, and 1 lakh. So you can see here for 0.5 micron, if you relate with that, you will get that many number of particles. You can count the number of particles by using a particle counter. So you can see here yellow room and white room, and where all the equipments are kept for different processes, and low photolithography process is usually done in the yellow room. That is actually because the photoresist what we use will not take the white light, which is having a shorter wavelength. So we have to use it yellow light itself. So other equipments we can still use in a white light. And also we have to see to it that the yellow room will be in terms of 1000, more than 1000, that is 100 classrooms should be there for yellow room. So coming on to the clean room layout, this is the clean room layout. So when you to enter the clean room layout, you have to just like that, you cannot go inside, you have to wear a gowning has to be there. So separate gowning area will be there where you have to use a pullover, and you have to get dressed up like this, and an air shower is required to pass through to remove all the dust particles, and then you can enter into this. So here an HVAC unit will be there wherein you can see the outside air will be entered through this and filtered out with a filter, a 0.5 micron filter, and then it is heated and then cooled, and then it is passed through the air plenum. So then an FFU units are there on the top of it, and that is nothing but this one, HEPA filters, high efficiency particle air, high efficiency particulate air, that will be there to suppress all the dust particles of up to 0.3 microns. A remaining air will be, with the cooled air, will flow through the clean room. So the clean room has to be maintained at some 20 degree to plus 20 degree to 21 degree, plus or minus 21 degree, plus 20 to 21 degree, plus or minus 1 degree. And then humidity also has to be maintained. That depends upon the requirement of the equipments. So this is the actually the HVAC unit. This is same as what I have explained here. And then coming on to MEMS device development. So to develop anything, first these are all the main overview of that. It will involve 3 basic techniques, that is deposition, photolithography, and etching. So here you can see the devices. For any device, you first initially you need a technical specification, or what actually has to be there. Suppose if any range of the sensor or any actuator, first you should have all the technical specification has to be there, and then you have to do designing consideration has to be taken care of, and 2D, 3D modeling and all has to be done. All these things are done by using the software design tool. And then the GDK, the GDS2 file will be passed to the foundry. In the foundry, using the silicon wafer of different sizes, and it is we do usually deposition process, and different layers will be deposited on that, and then pattern transfer, like depending on the structure what we want, the pattern has to be created, and mask has to be prepared, and pattern has to be created by using the some mask aligner and all. And then we have to do some etching portion. This process will be repeated number of times, so depending upon the complexity of the device, and then it is passed on. After the completion of the fabrication process, it will be passed on to probing, that is nothing but your characterization will be done, and at different stages the characterization will be done, and then it is actually sectioned, in the sense it is diced, and then the it is called as singulation. Dicing is nothing but your singulation. The singulated module, it is actually placed on the substrate, a packaging substrate, and it is wire bonded, and it is encapsulated here, and then you will get the final output. So this is the overall structure, overall picture of the view of the MEMS device fabrication. And the basic, already I have told, deposition process, lithography process, and etching process. These 3 are important points, and wherein wafer will be taken inside, and of different sizes. We do 3 different process, and even doping also will be done depending upon the transduction principle. Like in case if you have any piezoresistor and all, so you have to do the doping on the top of it by using ion implantation. And the mask set is actually for different structures. Different masks are used by created by using some mask writer and all, and then that is done by using photolithography operation. So you have to use a mask and then placed on the top of the wafer, and the UV light is passed on through that. For the UV exposure is done, and then it is developed by using a photolithography operation. So the final output, after completion of that, you will get the final wafer output like this, and you can see the initial structure was like this, and the final output is fabricated device. And then some of the characterization process will be done by during the process, fabrication process, and even after the process, like mechanical characterization, electrical characterization, and optical characterization. Mechanical characterization, we do thin film stress measurement. These are all the very only few has been listed out here, and there are many number of characterization processes are involved. And the thickness measurement, bond tester, bond pull test during the packaging process also some of the characterizations are done. Sheet resistant measurement, then electrical, the most important in electrical characterization is IVCV measurement, and optical as a visual inspection and all will be done. So coming on to MEMS packaging process. MEMS packaging process, as I have already told, dicing will be done after the fabrication, and critical point dryer to remove the friction and the moisture. Critical point drying is done, and then die attach is nothing but actually on the package die is attached by using some adhesive. Then flip chip bonding also can be used for die attaching process. And then flip chip bonding, the main thing is after the placing the die on the packaging substrate, the contact pads have to be connected to the packaging contacts. So for that we do wire bonding or a flip chip bonding. The wire bonding we do if the number of pin counts are very less, whereas flip chip bonding we do in case if number of pins are very high, and which is not possible in manually. or even using wire bond, we use flip chip bonding. And then bond pull test and shear test is actually a characterization process after wire bonding to find out the strength of the bond. Then we do encapsulation. Different types of the types are there: vacuum sealing and encapsulation, where we can use electron beam welding, seam sealing equipments for that, and on further inspection for whether it is internally done properly, fabrication process and packaging process and all is done properly. We can find out by using X-rays, by using X-ray inspection system. And in case the wafer size is very high, thick, in case the wafer is very thick, and then we have to do a back grinding process from the back side of that. And chemical mechanical polishing usually we do in order to have a protection layer on the top of it. Polishing will be done, and so as to protect the device on the top of it. So this is the packaging process, and this is what you observe when after the if you do the reverse engineering of any device, like suppose in this case it is MEMS microphone module. If you reverse engineering, you remove all this portion and see internally, you can see like this packaging substrate, and this is the MEMS device, MEMS die, and it is wire bonded, and the die material is there. Here this is an ASIC, this is nothing but in case if you are developing a signal conditioner, an ASIC in the by using an application specific integrated circuit, and that will also have in the form of a die, and that is separately done, and together it is all, both are integrated together, and it is encapsulated, you can see like this, and finally it will be like this. So some of the packaging, MEMS packaging issues, as I told you, MEMS it is the latest technology, but we usually the cost of the MEMS device, it goes 70% of it for fabric packaging, because actually it is open for the environment, and it also depends upon the temperature condition, environmental condition like temperature, humidity and all. And so even though the sensor works, even though the device works when it got fabricated, but after the packaging it may not work because it is open for the external world. So we have to take care of this. Packaging is a very challenging process. So here for design it takes 5%, and for fabrication it takes 10%, and for assembly it takes 5%, for testing it takes 10%, and remaining 70% goes for the packaging. So this is the MEMS market. Now we find lot of MEMS devices like inkjet head. Now the latest printers, this jet printers and all are coming with inkjet heads made up of MEMS technology, and lot of pressure sensors, microphones, accelerometers, gyroscopes. There are so many other devices. You can see here RF MEMS, but as we go on, like this year in this picture, we are seeing 2016 onwards, and it is increasing. It is increasing, and it will further increase because the technology is very high. It is very technology is the latest technology where everywhere you find, and I will be showing you some of the applications. Yeah, some of the application like in automotive applications are there, consumer, industrial, military, biomedical, and commercial, and many more applications are also there. So when you come, you can see in automotive application, in case if you take up a car, you can find out so many sensors here. So here, tire pressure sensor, corrosion sensor, this is for tire pressure monitoring. Then corrosion sensor, whether anywhere it is corroded or not, whether any of the material is corroded or not, you can see by using a sensor, corrosion sensor. And so all these things are done by using MEMS, exhaust gas sensor, microphones for noise cancellation, and airbag, especially for airbag deployment, like in case if the car is going at a very high speed, and if it goes and hits somewhere, and the person who is sitting sitting behind the wheel has to be protected. For that protection, airbag can be deployed where, depending upon the force at which it goes and hits, the airbag can be deployed. So that the accelerometers are used for that purpose. And GPS for inertial navigation system and all inertial sensors are used. And for fuel injection also some pressure sensors are used. And there are so many other applications in the automobile, and anti-theft system, engine control, then fuel level and vapor pressure sensors are also used. And coming on to this, in mobile also you find a lot of sensors like gyroscope, temperature, humidity, then temperature and humidity measurement also you can see, and light sensor. Then geomagnetic sensors, that is for earth magnetic field measurement. And then proximity sensor, whether how far you are keeping your phone near to the ear. And then you can also see, like there are, by using some weather app and all, you can see the other temperature measurement and all you can see. And here you can see all these things are done. If you open up and see MEMS mobile, you can find a lot of MEMS sensors inside that. And then coming on to the industrial application, especially used for machine health monitoring. Machine health monitoring, we use vibration sensor and temperature, pressure sensors are also used. The data is actually in terms of vibration, temperature, pressures are all acquired through the sensors, MEMS sensors, and then it is actually passed on through a cloud. And then it is actually analyzed, interpreted, and depending upon the condition of the signal, data which is passed, and the appropriate action can be taken by an operator. So here, like problems like a misalignment, imbalance, then bearing problem, all those things we can analyze through the data what we acquired from here, and then it can be passed on to the operator. So in order to take an appropriate action, it can be done by using the sensors. Then coming on to machine tool application, again, there are one more application, like here I showed you already. I have shown you some of the machine tool application here by using temperature sensor, pressure sensor and all. Here by using a vibration sensor, we can still do a tool wear monitoring, whether the tool is worn out or not. Initially, what will be the vibration? And then when as it goes on, when the machining is going on, how it is going to the data, vibration data is going to change. It can be acquired and we can monitor the tool wear. Then coming on to some of the applications, some more applications of machine tools, like already in the previous lecture, Sir has explained about thermal error compensation. There we use a temperature sensor, a lot of temperature sensor, and even displacement sensor also is used along with that. And displacement sensor is also used for spindle growth measurement, like due to temperature rise, the spindle may grow to some extent in few microns. So that has to be compensated. So that compensation can be done by using a measurement, can be done by using displacement sensor, and the force sensor can be used for anti-collision detection. There are many more applications. I'm only highlighting on 3 of the applications here. And then coming on to some other applications like earthquake detection, also we use some vibration sensor, seismic vibration sensor, and for train also, for speed measure monitoring in train also we use accelerometers. And then for volcano eruption status, to find out when the volcano is going to erupt at different places, we can place the wireless sensor network having many different type of sensors, different kind of sensors like pressure sensor, vibration sensor, all built in a single sensor unit. We can put in a single sensor unit box, and then it can be placed and the data can be acquired, and it can be the data wirelessly. You can acquire the data through the base station, and you can find out when it is going to erupt. Volcano is going to erupt, and then you can take appropriate action on that. So coming on to defense application, you will find a lot of application here. And in the inertial navigation, and that is for guidance, military weapon guidance and all. Then and personal navigation, we use MEMS sensors and the electromagnetic signal processing for ultra small, ultra low power wireless communication. Distributed attenuated sensors also are used for asset tracking, environmental monitoring, security surveillance also. Then we use embedded sensor and actuator for condition-based monitoring also. And then there are some more applications: missile guidance, laser range finding, air control systems, cabin pressure measurement, and then fingerprint sensors for authentication, security monitoring, aircraft control, hydraulic systems. All this, in all this, MEMS sensors are used. Then coming on to aerospace application, you can see here at different area within the flight. You can find out a lot of sensors, like here, a radar altimeter. You can see the height of the at what height the flight is. You can see by using a radar altimeter, and you can see the temperature and also humidity of the outside temperature and humidity. You can measure the cabin pressure, acceleration, cabin pressure, temperature, cabin pressure inside the cabin. What is the pressure? All that can be measured by using the MEMS sensors within the flight and outside the flight also. You can see a lot of sensors. And coming on to biomedical application, here initially, as you can see here, how the miniaturization has affected. Initially, it started with the benchtop module, then it went on for portable, and then wearable, and now implantable also has come. But all these things are still being used in the hospital, lab care, home care, point of care also. In anywhere it can be used. So this is the actually biomedical application. I will show some more. Here for endoscopic, like internal body, you can see, especially in intestine and all, you can pass the MEMS device for like a camera kind of thing. It can be inserted through the intestine and find out. You can do the endoscopy to find the internal problem inside. And some micro surgical tools are also built. It can be used by using MEMS technology. Micro needles are there for drug delivery system, and then micro lens array for blind people. They can have the pleasure of having the vision by using micro lens array. And then coming on to some more biomedical application, like for drug delivery, wherein in the form of a capsule, it can be taken inside, it can be swallowed, or it can be implanted in the skin also. So to find out, especially a diabetic patient, it can measure, because it is kind of a lab on chip, wherein it will measure the blood sugar level and find out whether the patient is requires any insulin, and based on that, the drug is actually stored here, and it will be given to the patient. Based on that, it will get released. The insulin can be released. You can see that here. And even for the hearing aid also, microphones, MEMS based microphones, especially you can see analog device here, analog device. So that can be placed over here, and then you can provide the hearing aid for the patient. Then some of the commercial application, especially in the display unit and all, digital mirror device is used, and inkjet cartridge I have already told, and then micro mirror switch is used, and accelerometer and pressure sensor are also used for commercial application. Then in CMTI, we have a MEMS fabrication facility, packaging facility, and characterization facility. And this is for the 6-inch wafer size, and around 26 equipments are placed. This is for STDC, actually, Sensor Technology Development Center. So under that, all these things are right now, it is functional. All these equipments are functional, and it can be used for service also. And we are also doing a lot of R&D work. And here you can see a mask aligner, actually for lithography operation, mask writer for creating the masks, and then wet bench for etching process, and spin coater for deposition. Then E-beam operation, actually for deposition process, metal deposition process. UV anneal and hot embossing, actually for nano application, nano fabrication equipment. And critical point dryer, friction and moisture can be removed by using this. Then DRIE, actually for deep reactive ion etching, that is for the dry etching process, electroplating actually for contact plating, we can use this. These are all the some of the fabrication facility what we have in CMTI. And then coming on to packaging facility, as already I have explained, dicer, wafer dicer, we have a plasma cleaner for cleaning the wafer, and then initial cleaning at various stages also it can be used. And wire bonding, we have wire bonder, we have wafer bonder, we have for wafer to wafer bonding process that is used. Flip chip bonding for a higher pin count, flip chip bonder can be used. And seam sealer and V-beam welding is actually for encapsulation purpose, we have the facility. And then characterization process also are done in CMTI. And in our department, we have optical microscope, bond tester, probe station and impedance analyzer, electric thermal cycling, X-ray inspection, and helium leak detector. So this is the entire facility what we have in CMTI, and we have done already the temperature sensor already in the previous lecture. Sir has already explained about that. And then pressure sensor, accelerometer we are right now doing. Flow sensor also, it's almost in the completion stage. So this is the complete 2D packaging we have the facility for the incoming fabricated wafer. We can do the 2D packaging, and the packaged device we can obtain a packaged device. Then this is the complete line. So currently we have kept in a temporary clean room. All these equipments are kept in a temporary clean room. Right now we are doing the construction of a new building, actually STDF, with ISO 5, ISO 6, ISO 7 and ISO class 8 class, catering for microsystem design, fabrication, characterization, packaging process. So it is coming up within a year or so, depending on the pandemic situation. This facility will come up in CMTI, and wherein all these equipments, whatever has been shown, will be shifted inside this, and we can make use of that facility, and we can do a lot of collaborative activities in CMTI as we give also service. So this is my presentation. Thank you all for attending my presentation, and over to Pradyumna.
Thank you, madam, for the brief overview on the MEMS and its application.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. We shall see if there are any questions from the participants.
Sure, sure.
So I don't see any questions from the participants, madam. So we shall move on to our next topic, that is machine vision technology development at CMTI. So our next speaker is Deepa. Let me take this opportunity to introduce Deepa. Deepa Radhakrishna has over 12 years of experience in development of state-of-the-art machine vision inspection solutions and their integrations for factory automations. She has experience in developing machine vision solutions ranging from simple 2D inspections to complex 3D inspections involving lasers and DMD projection systems for various tasks like precision measurements, defects inspection, assembly inspection, and sorting applications. She was involved in establishing the vision systems and mechatronics laboratories at CMTI. These laboratories are equipped with facilities to conduct feasibility studies for various customer requirements and for other research activities. She has published several papers in national and international journals and conferences and has received 2 copyrights for her developmental work. With the demonstrated background, she was successful in acquiring 2 projects on development of 3D scanners from DST under the Advanced Manufacturing Technology Program. Her current research interests are 3D imaging, 3D reconstruction, internal inspection, and machine learning. With this introduction, I request Deepa to take over the presentation.
Thank you, Pradyumna. I'll just share my screen now. Can you please confirm if my screen is visible? Is my screen visible, Pradyumna?
Yes, yes, Deepa, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the last session of the day. This is on machine vision technology development at CMTI. So, okay. So to start with, let us see what is machine vision. Actually, I'm sure most of us would have heard of the term computer vision. It is quite popular in today's world because it is one of the area which is very popular in the field of artificial intelligence. So when we talk of artificial intelligence, it is actually a technology which is focused towards developing systems which can mimic the human behavior. So there, when we speak of computer vision, it is like adding a human eye to a system. Basically, we have a camera system. We capture images, we analyze the images, and those analysis is used for analyzing the various trends and making predictions, future predictions, and all such things. So machine vision is actually a application-oriented domain of computer vision. When we speak of vision technology as applied to industrial processes, it is generally called as machine vision. So this is the basic difference, though these days the line is getting thinner and thinner. A lot of analysis and other applications are also being used in machine vision related work. So it is basically the automated extraction of information from digital images for process control or inspection of manufactured products. So machine vision as applied to industrial processes, when we say, it is mostly for controlling the quality of the product, improving the process efficiency, and all such things. And it is mostly for deployed for tasks which are repeatedly performed. Okay, the system performs the same task repeatedly. So that way, it is simpler compared to a computer vision application. Okay, so generally these systems are deployed in industrial lines because it is faster, it is more consistent. So for example, when a quality inspection is being performed by a human inspector, there is always an amount of the stress or the fatigue, and also the speed, all such issues which come in. So in such scenarios, machine vision systems can be replacing the humans. These are generally the overall category of applications where the machine vision systems are deployed. Okay, measurement or defect analysis, counting applications, locating means in the assembly inspection kind of applications, and decoding, like packaging application where the labels have to be read, barcodes have to be read, those kind of applications. This is actually a major classification kind of all the tasks can be classified into majorly these categories. Okay, so when we say this is just a depiction of what exactly these are measurements. So if we have to measure any critical the features, and defect analysis on any component, any scratch or such unnecessary things which are not supposed to be present in the component and which degrades the quality of the component. Okay, defect analysis, counting. This is mostly in packaging applications. Okay, packaging, and also in assembly inspections also it can be done, the number of holes and all such things. Counting applications, locating can also be used in robo guidance kind of applications, also AGVs and other things. And character recognition, reading the labels. These are all some of the major applications of using the machine vision. The advantage is also that all these values or whatever measurements or any data that is collected, it can be logged into a database, and a lot of data analysis tasks can be performed further on. Data analytics can be performed for improvement in the, it could be improvement in the business or the overall quality of the product. Okay. So this is how this is just a schematic of how a typical vision system would look like. Okay, there is generally there will be the conveyor system on which there will be a line of components which will be coming in. Okay, basically a vision system consists of a camera. Okay, and the camera will be assisted with other associated accessories like optics, lighting systems. Okay, these optics and lighting systems are the major component of a vision system. So once a component arrives at the designated spot, it is sensed by using some means of a sensing, and then using the sensing, the camera is triggered through the vision controller, and the camera captures the images. The images are analyzed, and then the outputs are produced. So this is how a typical vision system looks like. This can be considered as a visual sensing also. So this is the object, okay, camera with optics, the illumination, okay, the sensor, vision controller. Vision controller could be a PC-based controller. It could be an embedded controller as well. Then you will have a lot of the digital I/O modules sitting inside the controller, which will be controlling the synchronization between the sensors and then the camera units. So once the analysis takes place, based on the result of whether this is the object is supposed to be accepted or rejected, the appropriate action will be taken for the sorting. So if it is rejected, it could go to one line, and if it is accepted, it could go to the other line. So that way. So we'll just discuss some basics of these accessories like camera and optics and other things. Then for some say 5-10 minutes, then we will move on to the actual applications where this vision technology has been used and applied at our facility. Okay, so first, to start with the camera system, there are two basic types of categories, though there are several, the types of cameras which are available. Two basic categories can be area scan cameras and line scan cameras. Area scan cameras are the ones which we generally come in, encounter in our day-to-day life. It is actually a camera which can capture one-shot image of a given scene. So it will have a collection of pixels in rectangular form. Okay, it will have a number of rows and number of columns, and the image is captured. Whereas line scan camera is a different type of a camera wherein we have only a single line of pixels, and the object is generally in motion, and the line by line, the pixels are captured and bundled together to form the image. So these line scan cameras have got a special kind of applications. It is generally used in continuous inspection, where there is, for example, textile continuously being produced and coming in. Such things, when it has to be inspected, generally the line scan cameras are used. So moving further in our further slides, we'll also see an application where this line scan cameras have been used. Okay, this is just a broad category, but otherwise there are based on wavelengths, there are thermal cameras and near infrared cameras, UV cameras, and even these days we also have the hyperspectral and multispectral cameras which are available, and those are all used for specific kind of applications. But in general, these area scan cameras, or another name is the matrix cameras, are the ones which are generally used. So coming to the optics, generally used are two different type of optics: the endocentric lens and the telecentric lenses. Endocentric lenses is something which we can always perceive. That is, as we have an object closer, it appears larger, and as the object goes away, the object will appear smaller in the image. So that is a general endocentric lenses which we come across every day. Telecentric lenses are again, it is only a special kind of a machine vision lens which is used for precision measurement applications. So within a given, the working distance of the lens, the magnification does not change. It also maintains the focus. So this is a special kind of lens which is generally used for precision measurement applications. We have various type of lightings. Choice of lighting is a very important factor when designing any vision system. There are various types of lighting systems which are available. Okay, the ring light, different shapes, and also the way it illuminates, bright field, dark field. It could be front light, back light. So all these choice has to be made depending on the application that we are addressing. So we have the ring light here, generally used for circular kind of components. Then backlight, this gives a shadow image of the component. This looks something similar to what we see in a profile projector. It basically gives a shadow, and we will be, whenever the silhouette or the shape of the object is of concern only, not the surface, then in such kind of situations, this kind of backlight illumination is used. And if the component is highly reflective, in nature, then we need to choose the lighting appropriately. Okay, that is the doom light. The doom light is actually diffuse lighting, what we call it as diffuse lighting, where the lighting falls uniformly from all directions, so that the reflectivity of the component is reduced. So these are all the different type of lighting which is generally used. I'm just giving a brief introduction of what are all the generally available the accessories. It has to be chosen based on the application. Okay, and also the software. Software is once the hardware elements are all designed, then a part of after capturing the image, what next? We need to analyze the image and target whatever is the target application that has to be achieved. So there are various types of software packages which are available in the market for giving us the basic libraries which are useful for analyzing any image. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that way, the basic libraries which are available these are some of the things. There is an open source software which is available, like the OpenCV, and then there are various other libraries also. Some of them can address some little bit of complex applications. Some are configurable kind of things, like for example, LabVIEW, it's a configurable software. Simple kind of applications can be addressed using Sherlock and all those tools. There are several of them. So they give the packages. Later we have to develop, after developing the application, the front end and other things also, we need to do it using some other software packages. So let's now move into some of the applications where this vision technology we have explored so far and developed systems for the various requirements from industries. Okay, these can be majorly categorized into defect inspection and measurements in terms of both 2D as well as the 3D measurements. Okay, so this is the first one, the automated inspection of retaining bush. This retaining bush, as you see here in the picture, it is a plastic injection molded component. It's an automotive component, actually. It's a part of a seat belt. Okay, so there are various types of defects like any injection mold component that it develops, like flash and presence of cracks, black spots, color variation, missing feature, several type of defects which it can develop. So we have a system here. It looks like this. A schematic is in this particular picture. We have a vibratory feeder and a linear feeder, which feeds the component to the inspection station. The inspection station consists of two cameras, one looking from the top, other from the side. Okay, these positions and everything is decided based on keeping the factors like cost also in mind, and also where the majority of the defects appear on the sample. Okay, the images are captured. Actually, what's happening here is already a good component is trained and it is stored in the database. Basically, each and every one of these defects can be defined with a particular. Every defect has got its own features. So we have to define the features in terms of some numericals, and it is already stored in the database. So when any test component comes into the inspection station, it is compared with what is already stored in the database to say whether it is a good component or a defective one. So here from the vision side, the inspection rate is about 3 parts per second. Okay. So I think probably you would have observed this video. This is a screenshot of the application that is running in our facility. Okay. Next is the inspection of drippers. This is actually an application in the agriculture industry. So this is where I was talking about the line scan camera which is being used. Okay, this is this dripper is a component which is used for drip irrigation. So there are holes on this components through which the water seeps during the when the irrigation is happening. If the hole is blocked, then this component is defective and not fit for use. So that whole blockage has to be checked. And also there are various other parameters along the along the edge of this dripper wherein the pipes get connected. So there can be flash or it could be broken. In such cases, the pipes don't get connected. Even those has to be checked. So this is one application where we have used the line scan camera. Here it is in the picture. This is the line scan camera along with the associated lighting system. So so you can see here in the image, this is actually a view of this particular dripper, which is a cylindrical component. Okay, we have captured it line by line, and it gives an opened out view. So it actually becomes simpler to inspect when this type of cameras are used, because we get a clear distinction between the feature of interest and the background. So this is one application where we have used it is checking for the blockage of the holes and also the edges, which are for any blockage or root flash or all such things. Okay. And this is a surgical screw inspection system. This is a measurement system, a 2D measurement system. This is actually, when we say surgical screw inspection, it's the orthopedic screws, okay, which are used in orthopedic applications. So this is a screw. Actually, it has various parameters, top head and also the thread parameters need to be inspected. So we have two different setups here. One is the one which is looking from the top, and this is the setup for measuring the thread. Two different things, and also this particular task is highly complex because the features which are there of interest are all at different heights. So in order to address this, we have used a motorized lens here, automated motorized lens here. So so this is the view of the the thread parameters that you can see here. So this is the one. So these are the top head. Okay, we have one. This is actually the hexagon pattern being measured, and the other one is the diameter of the circles being measured, and this is the thread parameters which are being measured. They are all at different heights. These two features are at different heights, but the autofocusing lens is actually focused at different heights, and then it is taking the image, and we are doing the measurements. You can see here in the table, all the measurements are done. If this particular task has to be done manually, it is going to take quite a lot of time. Whereas here, it is only at the click of a button, we are able to do the measurements, and we are able to do with an inspection accuracy of about 5 to 7 micrometers. So this is another version of the same, the thread measurement system is also there also in the surgical screws also we have a thread. So this is exclusively for thread measurement alone. So this is a technology that we have developed for measurement of all the thread parameters. This again, the thread measurement, if it has to be done by conventional means, probably it requires multiple equipment. There are some equipments like, ULM, which is being used for measurement of thread parameters. Even there, I think the major, minor diameter, thread pitch diameter can be measured. But again, pitch and flank angle is generally measured by using some other equipment. So here we have all the features which are being measured at a click of a button within few seconds. And it is very quick, and it can also be implemented in a production line if it has to be, if the thread, the measurement has to be carried out. So here, this is a kind of image that we get, very similar to what we get from a profile projector, a digitized version of a profile projector, we can call it as. Okay, and all the parameters here, and if we give the nominal values, based on that, we also get a result of whether this particular screw is an accepted or a rejected one. And also the inspection report can be generated from this. Okay, the PDF inspection report. So all these, this is a system which we developed in, integrated with a conventional machine for part quality check along with remote monitoring. That is, all the parameters that we inspect will be stored on a the cloud server, and it can be accessed from anywhere. So this is actually in this particular system, both 2D as well as 3D measurements are being performed. Here in this particular picture, you can see the image. The component has got 2 holes. It also has some characters engraved on it. Okay, so here we are measuring what are all the dimensions that we are measuring. We are measuring the circle dimensions. We are measuring the distance between the 2 circles. We are inspecting the label which is engraved on the sample, and also we are measuring the height. Height is something which we cannot measure with a 2D measurement system. it requires 3D. So that is the reason we have here, we have a laser being introduced into the inspection system that is measuring the height of the sample. Okay. Another thing is this inspection is very fast. It is done at a rate of 7,200 parts per hour. Is a speed at which it is measured, and also as you can see here, okay, all the parameters that are inspected is monitored remotely. It can be monitored live. Okay. So this is another tool positioning system which we have developed. It is used for tool setting operation in one of the machines developed, ultra precision turning machine developed by CMDI. This has been integrated. It measures the tool radius and the tool tip point to an accuracy of about 3 to 4 microns. It improves the production efficiency because the tool setting time comes down. Okay, this is another system which we have supplied to one of our customer running successfully at a production line. This is a component which is used in textile machines. Okay, the fluted roller. So this particular roller develops a lot of defects on it. So if there are defects on the roller, then when the thread is weaved, it can get cut. So in order to avoid that, this particular component had to be inspected. So we have a 2-camera system here. Okay, there are about 72 images which are captured per roller, and each of these images are inspected for the presence of any defects. And there are various models in this particular roller, about 8 models with varying length. Everything is addressed in a single machine, and we also have a lot of features for the data analysis, statistics parts. We have summary analysis, report, and batch-wise analysis. A lot of things are included. Okay, so this is the system that has been supplied, and it is being continuously, it is in the production line. All these, whatever we saw just now, they are all 2D based inspection systems. Okay, in the sense that height is something which we, apart from the one laser-based system, what I showed, all others are 2D-based systems, 2D measurement systems. We are also having some projects which are running for development of 3D measurement, 3D inspection systems. So we are developing 2 different type of scanners. One is the fringe projection based scanner and other is a laser based scanner. These 2 different types of scanners are for addressing different types of components and also different accuracies and speed requirements. Okay, so basically they consist of camera systems and projection units, structured light projection units. In the fringe projection system, it is basically, this kind of patterns which are projected, coded patterns are projected. Okay, and the entire system is calibrated. From the calibration parameters and also the images that are captured, the complete 3D can be, 3D point cloud of any given object can be extracted. This 3D point cloud can be used for measurements as well as for different reverse engineering kind of applications as well. Okay, and apart from this, it's actually when we capture a view, it is only a single view that is captured. That may not be sufficient in many of the applications. So we have to move the scanner and take it at different angles and combine them. That is process is called as a registration. We have different types of registration techniques also, which are incorporated in this particular scanner. Okay, one is the marker-based registration, other is the optical tracking-based registration methods. Okay, we'll see that. So this is one of the model, the first version which we have demonstrated at International Machine Tool Exhibition. Okay, these are some of the point cloud data which we have collected from the fringe projection system. Okay, this is the another type, that is a laser-based scanning system. Laser-based scanning system, which we have developed. So here it is scanning a tire. So tire is something which cannot be done using fringe projection because of the black surface. We don't see any fringes at all in the image. To address these type of components, laser scanning is the best. So we have here one laser and the camera system. It works on the principle of triangulation. Okay, different laser images are captured and we can generate this is the complete point cloud picture of the complete point cloud of the tire which has been generated. So okay, these are the two types of scanning. Now we have moved from this. This is actually a static scanner. We are developing a handheld version of this now. Okay, it's a project currently going on. So this is the version of the handheld scanning which we are developing. Okay, it has 2 cameras and a laser system. So it comes with the technology for scanning using markers. This is the markers which I said. We have to paste some markers on the objects and use that for scanning process. That is one method. Other method is the optical tracking. So both these technologies we are developing currently, and it has progressed to a great extent. Okay, thank you. So if there are any, thank you for your time. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to take.
Yeah. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you for giving an overview on the developmental activities on machine vision technology at CMTI.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let us see if there are any questions from the participants. I don't see any questions, but I see one question from the previous presentation, that is from Mr. Santosh Kumar. Humidity 90% and a temperature of 15 degrees is possible. This is what the question is. Probably Kusma madam will be the better person to answer to this. Maybe we'll get back to you on this on the mail, sir. So with this, I thank all the speakers who have given their overview on their particular topics. Thank you, speakers, and thank you, participants.
Thank you, Pradyumna. Thank you all.